Okay, class, this is Dino Crisanti, and I'm your Amish motion teacher. It's a couple of days after my Halloween party, that's why I'm missing my mustache. But I'm going to talk to you today about building your puppet. This is the finished one that I showed you in class, and I'm going to show you the process of making the understructure for this. I gave you a dowel rod already, and I've already pre-drilled a couple of holes. Now I'm going to take a small piece of our aluminum arc wire. It doesn't need to be very long. We have to make sure our core is smaller than the size of the head that you're going to be creating. So you need a full-size drawing of your character's head. So you take the wire and you stick it into one hole and you kind of flip it around here. Oops. Spin it around and then stick it through the other hole like so. Now it is a little noisy here. I'm at the studio. You can see in the background I'm at BMT where I work. But here is what it looks like. You know, this shape right here almost means nothing. It doesn't need to look like anything in particular. It's really just to hold onto this dowel rod. Now packed around this will be the epoxy putty. And epoxy putty is a two-part kind of clay. When mixed together, it turns into a rock-hard material that will hold this wire in place. And it'll also be textured so that the clay has something to bite into. Okay? So you've got some epoxy putty. There is part A and part B. You can see this is kind of a green-gray and this is kind of a light gray. Now you're going to mix these two together like so. And hang on. I have a little bit of a little bowl of water right next to me, and I dip my fingers in that water, and I'm going to mix this stuff together. Okay? And you're going to keep on mixing it, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll roll it out like that, and then spin it, twist it, and then fold it over, and do it again. I'm going to cover up some of my massive forehead with this, so I look like not completely bald. Okay, so you're gonna keep on mixing it a lot longer than I just showed you. I'm going to stop the tape or stop the camera, and then I'll show you once it's mixed. Okay, you can see that I still need to mix it some more because there are some streaks of color, and this has to be very thoroughly mixed so it is one color when it's done. And you'll notice that I started with two spheres that were the same size. I usually roll them into the spheres so that I can really compare the size because it has to be equal amounts. This stuff will go off in about an hour. That means it'll set up in an hour. But if you put it under a warm light, it'll go off in about 10 minutes. You can even put it in an oven if you want to, or some place where it's warm. You can even use a hair dryer if you want. So I'm going to stop the camera for a moment, mix this thoroughly, and then I'll show you how to do the next step. Okay, now I've really mixed up my epoxy putty. It's been a few minutes. I will sometimes flatten it out like this, and I will roll it and fold it over and dip my fingers in some water. This just helps keep it from sticking to your hands. This just keeps it from sticking to your hands. So now we've got that, and now we have our dowel rod and piece of wire. This just simply goes, and you don't need to make that noise, but it basically you squish this epoxy into the nooks and crannies of the wire. That's as simple as it is. It's very, very simple. I'm going to take a sculpting tool and I'm going to start to texture this. I like using an X-Acto blade because that gives you some really sharp angles and holes. You can see right there. I'll show you some more. Now you always have to pay attention to make sure that this core does not get too large. This just becomes the handle for your puppet, for the head that you're going to be sculpting. And the handle gives you the opportunity to sculpt the Sculpey without having to touch it or lay it down on a flat and then ruining some of the surface. So you can see I've got some real serious texture in there. Next step is you're going to take your piece of brass tubing. I cut you a little piece of brass tubing right there. Now this is called telescoping brass, and here is a piece on here already, you see. So this is the piece we're going to put in the head, and this is going to be the piece that goes onto the wire that is your neck of your puppet, so that this fits inside here. And then you'll be able to take it on and off if you need to repair it. So you take this brass, and you carefully take your tool, and you make a little divot in the epoxy. Now you lay the brass in there, and you want the brass sticking down and out, like that. This stuff is kind of sticky, so it works for you. Take a little piece of this, and then make sure you wrap it around the brass, like that. Okay? A little bit more will probably be better, because you want to make sure that this thing is very stable, because this is going to be the core of your puppet's head. If you want to stick it down and out a little bit, so when you're looking at this, you have to imagine that this is where the neck is going to be of your puppet. So the head is going to come around like this, and the face is going to be here. And you see it's kind of thin on either side here, so I could put those eyeballs that we use in class to make the eyes of the puppet. Okay, I'm going to stop it again and get those eyes so I can kind of set them in place. So this is what it's going to look like when it's done, basically. You still want to make sure that you have lots of texture, because that's going to give the clay something to hang on to. So you can kind of see what that looks like now, right? Now it's not very thick and it's not very large, but you can see that if I were to take these eyes, as one of those plastic eyes that are the resin eyes that I can pour for you in class. So now you can see that I'm starting to put the eyes on there. Now these might be a little too far or a little too deep, so I'm not going to stick them on there yet. I'm going to set them in clay. So once this sets up, you can start packing your clay around, and you have to make sure that there's a cup, that this is exposed at the bottom, like so. Okay, so this is what this looks like in the inside. Okay, and you see how far out these eyes are versus where that brass is. So you want to wait until the clay comes, the clay part of it comes in, and then you can figure the rest of that out. And remember that this is just a piece of epoxy. Same epoxy I used just to do what I just did. And this fits right on here. Okay? Any questions, you can contact me via email, and we will talk soon. So I'm going to send a link for this video, and then you can start packing the clay around there and setting your eyes. You don't need to finish it by next week. Bring it in so I can look at it before you do that. Because once this is ready to go, we can bake it in class, and then we can cut this off and add hair. Okay, just to reiterate, you take this now and you can put under a warm light, like a 100-watt bulb and a lamp. It'll go off in about 10 minutes. And then you can start packing your clay around there. You don't need to finish it, but you can have it completed and then have me take a look at it before you finish it. We can bake it in class, and it won't take that long. You can wrap it in paper towels and put it in a container and bring it to class next week, or this week I should say. This is now Monday. And then later on we can cut this wood off and make hair or hat or some of the costuming that can cover up that blemish. And then this will fit onto the armature. We'll be starting our armatures very soon. Okay, call me or email me if you have any questions. Thank you.